Hello, and welcome to 6 Degrees from Cannabis. I'm your host, Tori Rarick, PharmD and holistic healer. Each episode features a candid conversation about how connecting with the cannabis plant has enhanced an individual's wellness journey. Here to honor the plant, talk about healing, and have fun. Hey everyone, happy new moon in Taurus. If you have pets, you're going to love this conversation with Dr. Zac. I was first introduced to Dr. Zac through Jordan Person, cannabis massage expert who was interviewed in episode 10 of the show. In this conversation, Dr. Zac speaks to how CBD brings harmony to the body, how he supports the cannabis movement as a veterinarian, and then answers the top 3 questions he gets asked. Is it safe? Will it work for my pet? And where do I start with dosing? Let's go to the show. Welcome back to the podcast, everyone. Tonight we have on Dr. Zac Pilossoph. He is a nationally recognized veterinary medical professional with postgraduate focused training in emergency care, critical care, and neurology and neurosurgery. As a proactive cannabis-focused expert in his respective industry, he provides value by delivering unbiased harm reduction education via both large-scale speaking engagements and individualized consultations to the global cannabis, pet, and vet industry. He's a certified CBD professional educator through the CBD Training Academy and has started a nationally influential multi-tiered cannabis brokerage firm titled Excelsior Honor Associates. He acts as a consultant for the CBD product space to impart as much quality control and consistency across the industry as possible. Through candid education, fierce collaboration, and constructive evolution, Dr. Pilossoph is reversing stigmas and advancing the safe and effective consideration of cannabis into society for all creatures on earth. Woohoo! Welcome, Dr. Zac.
Yeah, hey, absolutely. Really excited to be here. I love to be able to contribute to other people's work to help get the word out and to really support the cannabis movement. It's definitely important. So I'm really happy to be here.
Yes, thank you so much for making space. I know you've been traveling. You just mentioned that to me. So tonight, to break the ice, I wanted to choose a card from my highly inspired cannabis deck. It's called the Follow Your Heart Oracle, and cannabis was my muse while creating this. And so I pulled a card for us tonight, and I'd love for you to relate the card message back to your relationship with cannabis or how you view cannabis. And the card for tonight is harmony. So how do you connect those two things?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think that word is super fitting when it comes to cannabis. When you really think about what it does with our bodies, it literally does bring you back to a state of harmony, a state of equilibrium, a state of balance, wherever that may be. And so, for the fact that it interacts with the system, which I really like to refer to as our master surveillance system, the endocannabinoid system is literally just always trying to bring your body back to being at a state of balance. So, having harmony between each section of your body and each area of your body is literally quite fitting for the word of a good imagery or symbolism of what cannabis actually does for us every single day.
Completely. Thank you for that perspective. I love that. And so what was your original perception of cannabis? Maybe that started before veterinary school or before your practice. Take us back.
So I started out in life as kind of buying into what everyone else did, I guess you would say, before you really understood it. So I was really never a believer or proponent or even really much of a user of cannabis prior to maybe 5 or 6 years ago. So I went to school and I grew up in classic family and in Western society where the stigma was very tried and true. And then went to veterinary school eventually after graduating from undergrad, and still again, was told that it's just a toxin and a poison and you have to watch out for toxicity because it'll kill pets and stuff. So, so I was like, all right, well, that's just the way it is. So, so then, but it was actually my second internship when I was getting trained to was going to be a neurosurgeon for animals that I started to get completely exposed to the CBD space, and pet parents were coming in and, saying that they had started or were asking about starting a CBD product for their pets to try and control their seizures, because I was working at a neurology practice. And I just started getting inundated with a bunch of people just talking about it. And I've just always been, a quietly curious person. So I just started to look into it, and I came across the actual movement for medical cannabis for when people were using cannabis as a therapeutic in the human space. And that was really where within 2 or 3 weeks, I was completely blown away and hooked. The multimodal uses, the stories of how successful it was, the increased quality of life, if anything, of people that were using it for medicinal purposes, not using it for just a straight recreational purpose. That to me was just mind blowing, and didn't really know I still didn't trust it yet, but I was just like, all right, now it's time to really learn some more. And, over months of just continued research on my own and, going to events and listening to stories, but also looking at the science, then, that was when it was time to, start believing in this plant. And then, finally, when you realize that there were, tens of thousands of articles that have been written in the past, you got to know then something weird is up, that you haven't been learning about this.
And so I know, like, for me in my pharmacy training, so much of like my influence came from the hierarchy and my advisors or whoever I was shadowing or learning from at the time. And so did that break your concentration on your own curiosity that you were doing, or did you bring that to your advisors? How did it happen that you maybe like brought it into your practice?
So actually, I right now I'm a traveling veterinarian, so I don't actually have a practice yet. It's actually being established right now. But again, slowly I did become was frustrated with conventional Western style medicine very quickly. But the problem was that it wasn't going to be accepted yet in veterinary medicine. It wasn't even be accepted really in human medicine. Still to this day, we have a lot of people who still don't believe in it. And it is such a partisan type of conversation with so many doctors and specialists that are still not willing to believe in something that they weren't trained in school about. So, so where I started was basically just implementing as much candid education as I could for the community that was ready to listen. And so, that's where I started speaking at events, and they'd never had veterinarians come and speak. So, kind of getting a little bit of traction there. And that was prior to COVID, obviously. So,
right.
So that's where I started off. And then that was where I started to really get, absorbed into the community and was accepted by so many people. And then, over time, I started to find the people that were kind of doing right. And then again, as every industry has, there's people that are trying to take advantage of it for their own reasons. And, I was able to then eventually, after meeting thousands of people, really find some great people that were ready to help with the movement and help patients get better, whether they were humans or
amazing. And so what are the differences that you've noticed or had to warn people about? Because there is that toxicity factor with the THC and is it dogs specifically? What have you noticed the differences are between therapies?
Yeah. So that's one of my major talking points I have actually with when I do put on events and speaking engagements is really what does it mean for cannabis when there are effects that are not as beneficial or as appreciated? And so is that a toxicity or is that something else? Because if we look at the word toxicity, what toxicity really means is that it's causing damage or disease to one or more organs or functions. And so is cannabis ever really causing disease? I would argue that it absolutely does not, except for the only time I can ever think of is maybe is it exacerbates schizophrenia in select certain conditions in humans. It's all I can see that really would ever exacerbate an actual disease. So with that being said, the difference between a toxicity and an intoxication, where an intoxication just it alters your normal state of function, where it doesn't cause damage or disease, that's really what cannabis is doing. And that's the same as anything else that, it influences your normal mind functioning and your normal cognitive ability. Alcohol does the same thing. And, as we know, alcohol is everywhere. And so, again, and we look at the health benefits of cannabis and the health benefits of alcohol, I would say that the toxicity is really in the latter, and of other things that are used. I mean, cannabis doesn't really cause a toxicity in any animal except for maybe ones that are, sick or debilitated or have a serious underlying condition. It can maybe exacerbate those, but it really in and of itself never causes disease or doesn't cause a toxicity. Are there isolated events where cannabis maybe did cause an animal that had severe heart disease or was already really weak and fragile and did it make those animals maybe become closer to being sicker? Yes, I would say that that's also possible. But cannabis in and of itself cannot cause toxicity. It causes intoxication at certain levels because of the influence of THC and its metabolites. But, that's something that I talk to people a lot about, is that we're dealing with something here that technically by itself is harmless when you think about that. No animal or human has ever died from cannabis when it's been used and not adulterated, by other products. So we're really not dealing with a toxicity. We're really doing something that just alters your normal state of functioning, maybe cognitively.
Right. Yeah. And that's definitely a conversation people are wanting to have. That I've had with people at the CBD store. That's their main concern is, will I get high? So
Right.
Interesting. And how would you say that the plant serves you?
So, when I converted from a believer, but just someone that kind of was talking about the educational aspect to a user, was when I had my, I guess, third or fourth life and death experience, actually, like 3 years ago. And I was in a car accident that was pretty severe. I have, the right side of my body pretty much broke multiple bones and had severe head trauma, and I lost a bit of short-term memory for a couple of days and stuff like that. And that was where I decided and made the choice to use cannabis in place of Western pharmaceuticals to help my healing. Mm-hmm. And so with a combination of topicals as well as with general systemic cannabis use, I used it for pain, inflammation, for healing properties, for bone, for specifically bone and soft tissue healing. And then for skin healing and for wound and scar repair. So I literally use it for all the methods you possibly could think of for a traumatic event. And, now to this day, it was integral to the multimodal approach I took to healing from that, because where they told me I would never really walk again correctly. And, they potentially thought I would have, cognitive impairment for the rest of my life. That was both are not true anymore. I can run again and think very thoughtfully and philosophically still.
Amazing.
At work. And so it was great. It was really cool. It was again, a case study, right? It was just one person, but it was great. It was really cool. It proved to help me in more ways than one.
Yeah, those case studies are so important. That's basically what this podcast is just the collection of positive experiences. So thank you for that. Mm-hmm. And so how do you serve the plant? How do you return that favor?
So in the veterinary space, it still right now is a little bit difficult to get fully on board with the medicinal cannabis aspect, but where we can actually make huge strides in the veterinary world myself that I'm most absorbed in is the fact that in general, because we kind of touched on it before, is that cannabis is a little bit more of a sensitive product when in non-human animals. So dogs and cats are more sensitive to it. And what we're finding through my partner and I's work is that CBD, a full spectrum hemp extract with natural occurring cannabinoids, including CBD, has some amazing properties, very similar to a low THC percentage medicinal cannabis. So the THC component below 0.3% for us, it's still going to have some type of influence, but not compared to a 4 or 8% THC product. For them, they actually, if they have a little bit higher than, a starting dose in some animals, they can have signs that are very similar to a low percentage THC product. So, and that's good because that means that the medicinal aspect of THC, because not THC, it gets this bad rap about being, psychoactive, but it's a truly multimodal medicinal molecule. It has so many influences alone on the cells, with the other, minor cannabinoids and other terpenoids and flavonoids, et cetera, enhancing its ability to work. But THC is integral to the way in which cannabis helps in multiple disease processes. So the way in which we've been able to do it is to really harp on using as high of a THC percentage full spectrum hemp extract. So it's completely legal under the Agricultural Improvement Act of 2018, but yet it still has as close to the medicinal properties as possible that a cannabis plant can.
That's so wonderful to hear of that, support full spectrum and not shy away from that. And so what is the main question that you get asked most often when you're wearing the vet hat? Yeah. What's the most common question you receive?
It's literally the same theory every time. I'm sure that, you got when you were working with cannabis as well, pets, is this really safe? If it is, and, is this going to work for my pet? And then, where do I start? What's the starting dose? And, all those questions are good questions for someone that doesn't know about it yet and is starting from square one. But those are legitimately 1 to 10 times a day. I get at least one or more of them from the same person. So, quite frankly, it's easy to answer. Is cannabis really safe? I would say that the statistics agree that, you have to find a product that's not going to be adulterated, of course, and that's hard. But the long story short answer is yes, cannabis is literally the safest plant on this earth when used medicinally. Is it, is it going to be good for my pet? Well, if your pet has one or more health conditions that involves inflammation or pain or anxiety or neurologic or autoimmune or cancerous process, then I'm going to say there's a high likelihood it will help in one or more ways. And, and where do I start? That's the hardest question, because that really is based on so many different factors. And actually, the weight of the dog is probably one of the lower down questions. It's not really based on weight. It's about a lot of other factors that come into play. And so, that's why my partner and I have started to be able to do consultations with pet parents all across America.
I love that.
Yeah. It's been really great. And, we're not giving medical, we're not giving medical advice. We're guiding and consulting on how to enhance a pet's global lifestyle. And cannabis is integral to every single one of those, alterations that you can make. But it's something we've finally been able to reach out to people and offer. And we've had literally across the country from New York to Florida to California and everywhere in between. We've had some really great pet parents reach out, and we've been able to help a lot of people.
Right. Because I can't imagine how frustrating it is for any patient, whatever creature, to just receive like an answer of like, I don't know much about it, so I'm just going to tell you not to use it. So they have you as a resource, you and your partner, to be able to at least have conversation around it. Yeah.
It is difficult because most people still don't believe in it whatsoever. And so they do get told just to stay away. And so you have to take an easy approach to not sound like a radical from the other direction.
Right.
Even though that it's truly something to believe in. But again, it really does. It comes from finding a product that's not only safe, but also is going to be effective. And we have not only research that proves that cannabis works, but we also have a lot of research and evidence that there's a lot of cannabis and CBD companies that are not reputable and are not trustworthy, that have not the same ingredients that they're advertising and not the amount of CBD or cannabis molecules that they are advertising. So easier said than done, I'd say, to get started, but to believe in it is definitely step one.
Definitely. And this is a really encouraging conversation on so many levels. I've been excited to have you on and get this perspective for the animals, but what you're reflecting to me is really like the same story and the same philosophy that I took and I was instructed to share with patients that are human, which is like, find a decent product, find a high quality product, make sure you do your research, and then, take it from there.
Yeah, for sure.
Do you have a philosophy on preventative use for pets? Is this, and that might be a tricky answer. You don't want to have like a blanket statement, but is this something that people should just start for their pets?
Well, again, that's another great question because of the fact that, in veterinary medicine, as opposed to human medicine, there's no definition or derivation of a daily vitamin or a recommended daily supplement or anything of that nature. It's actually, you're not allowed to say that in veterinary medicine. So now, are there drugs and other compounds that are given on a regular basis? Yes, of course there are. But that is actually something that's very hard for veterinarians to advertise and for companies to advertise, is something that is, that they want to say you should give on a daily regimen because of the fact of what I just said. So, and so the question then begs though, why are we using cannabis? The cannabis plant itself helps to support the endocannabinoid system and then also helps to bring your body back to normalcy. So do I think that cannabis needs to be given every single day? I think that if in an animal that is, has one or more health conditions, then I would say it wouldn't hurt to consider it. But in an animal that's otherwise been completely healthy, that isn't experiencing any problems, then I don't know if I would say it's a highly recommended option. But again, I don't know if it would hurt. And I also know that, cannabis does help with preventing the development of pro-inflammatory states and of, even cancerous states. So would it hurt? Again, I don't think so. Is it 100% necessary? I don't think I know yes or no yet. But for sure, cannabis is there because it it helps our bodies to come back to harmony, as we talked about before. So
great. Thanks for tackling that.
Yeah.
And so as we close tonight, what are some cannabis-centered resources that you like to recommend?
So the reason why I put so much content out online actually is because it's hard to find some. So there are a couple of human doctors that do a great job. Dr. Sulak, S-U-L-A-K, is someone that my team and I have come to like very much so. He does a lot of free content for the community to be able to watch and look at and to get some really great trustworthy information from. So he's someone that I've put some stock in lately. And I met him actually several years ago at a conference when him and I spoke at the same conference. Both of us were actually a lot newer to the theme back then. So we kind of started from the same structure in that sense, I guess you'd say. But the human industry obviously is a little bit more accepting quicker. So he's done a great job of taking advantage of that and giving some non-biased information out there. So that's a good source. ProjectCBD.org has some great information in general. I've come to like them a lot as well. And actually, one of the writers, Mrs. Biles, actually helps to write some of our articles on my website and on my company's website that I'm a partner in. And then, like I said, I've put out a great deal of information already, as well as my business partner has. Her name is Angela Ardolino, and she is actually one of the few, if only, pet advocates out there that has graduated from a college that offers a degree in cannabis science and medicine. So she has a background which is pretty impressive that I have come to really trust in as well. And so her and I have put out some great information through blogs and through website information, and through now we're starting to create a video and YouTube channel as we speak right now. So there's more to come on that sense, but it's been it's hard to find really good information. I'm not gonna lie again, because so many people do have some things to say that I think are, since the knowledge we have of cannabis is evolving quicker and quicker every single day. Some things may have been outdated, or some things were just maybe a myth that have now been debunked. And so again, it's not easy, but those are some good resources I would say I would rely on if you're looking. So yeah.
Wonderful. I am going to link all that you mentioned below. I too want to give a shout out to Dr. Sulak. I ended up taking his course. It just felt right. It felt very credible and robust. So same here. And you have a ton of different blogs out on really specific inquiries that people might have, antibiotics versus CBD, or steroids and CBD. So make sure to check those out, everyone. All right, Dr. Pilossoph, is there anything else you want to leave with the listeners?
I actually sign off. I love to sign off with the same thing every time, because it's, it's what the naysayers love to come back at. And so I always stress people. I say that, regardless of how much I believe in cannabis and how, some of my community members believe in cannabis is 100% not a cure-all for everything. Okay. It's not meant to be the only option, but it is most definitely, when you have a safely vetted product, one of the most trustworthy first-rate options for almost every condition. And that's why we love it, is because a lot of these other drugs that we're reaching for are going to come with one or more positive influences and 10 or more side effects. And cannabis, the ratio is opposite. It's numerous potential benefits and zero, in my opinion, but maybe if you take into account psychoactive components, 0 to 1 side effects. So that's what we have to realize, that cannabis is here because it is medicinally just one of the most safest and potentially being one of the most effective first-rate options we have. But it's not here for us to completely solely just rely on. It's here to enhance our bodies. It's here to influence us in a way that's going to bring us back to homeostasis or normalcy. And then if we need a little help in other places, then sure, we can reach for some other natural products and maybe a pharmaceutical if we need it. But cannabis is great is because it's something we can just trust in almost every single situation. But when you start talking about it like it's the only thing we ever have to worry about, and it's, going to replace everything no matter what, that's where people go from being a believer and an advocate to a radical. And, when it's radical versus radical, then it's just, it's just a fiery conversation. But if you remain calm and you know that you can believe in this plan, and it's not your job to try and influence anyone, but once you start having people become influenced by you passively, that's when you know that you're doing a great job to get this plant to where it belongs in this world.
Amazing. I was nodding in agreement the whole way. Thank you for sharing that. And thank you for your time tonight.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I said, I'm happy to be here. And, I've listened to several of the podcast episodes, and I really love it. I think you're doing an amazing job here, just getting the word out.
Thank you. And so where can the listeners find you or book a consultation?
Sure. So, where to find me in person is difficult. I'm literally like traveling. I'm in like 3 or more cities a week right now with what I do with my vet life. But digitally, that's a lot easier. So on my company's website that I'm, like I said, a partner with my 2 other partners that are in it. The website is called cbddoghealth.com. And that's where you can get a good amount of information that is, like I mentioned before, as well as to book consultations for your pets that in which we help to really just kind of create a alternate plan for lifestyle longevity. And cannabis is an integral part of that. And then my personal website will be up hopefully by June. And that's where, again, I look to start putting up the videos that will then be transitioned into my YouTube channel, which I kind of mentioned before as well.
Awesome. All right. Thank you so much and have a great evening.
Absolutely. Same to you.
Thank you so much for tuning in to 6 Degrees from Cannabis. If you connected with this episode, please share it with a friend who would benefit from hearing it too. Tap the subscribe button to be notified when the next 6 Degrees episode is released. You can find more information about holistic healing, the Follow Your Heart Oracle deck, and what I do by visiting toryrarick.com. If you message us on Instagram at 6 Degrees from Cannabis, we'll be sure to message you back. Bliss be with you.